everyone here for the Pirate Football Nostalgia Party for the Sports Objective podcast. A very special night as we're here, and we thank everybody for tuning in on Facebook Live as we're live until 10 o'clock here, and we have a lot of great guests. I want to introduce our team. First off, Bubba Rosenbaum, former quarterback in high school and college. He's here, part of the team. Hey, Bubba, how you doing tonight?
Doing well. It's great to be here, Dave. I'm looking forward to a great night.
And I want to mention to my left, as if you're on watching on Facebook Live, is to your right, my right, it would be Kyle from LaGrange Barber. Kyle, how you doing, man?
Doing good, Dave. Great to be here. Glad to see everybody come out. Let's have a good time talking about Pirate football.
We're getting started. We have our very first guest, a man I've known for 30 plus years. I think you were 12 when you started.
I would say, it's been at least 30 years then.
Yeah, and that will be Coach Harold Robinson, of course, was with, let's see, John Thompson, Skip Holtz, and Ruffin McNeil, and then you were the director of, was it high school relations?
I was, yeah.
And we had a good time there, not only in Williamston, but also in East Carolina. We wanted to bring you on, being your man, first of all.
It was a great 12 years. I really enjoyed it. I think you got a good crowd tonight. You got some good Pirates that are here.
That's right. That's what it's all about. We want to honor former coaches, players, and staff. That's what it's all about. That's what makes Pirate Nation so special. I'll put up our fan base and our coaches, our players, and staff against anybody in the country.
Without a doubt. And the one thing about the Pirate fan base is, I think Coach Connor said it the best. He's the best. They're the best. And they follow you even when you're not having a good season. That last season with Coach Thompson, we were not really that good. We were bad. Well, but you know, the Pirate faithful, they showed up every game.
That's right.
Yeah, they're special people.
Wanted to have you on because I have the high school connection with Williamston, but also with East Carolina. What are your thoughts under the, let's talk about different coaches, maybe special players, or I know everybody's like you have 3 kids, every player is very special to you. I know, but are there certain like memories you have of the coaching staff you can tell us?
Well, no, I think the coaching staff, that all of them, we had great camaraderie. We really did, and that we stay in touch. Even the last year with Coach Thompson, that staff, we stay in touch with one another. Coach Holt's staff, of course, you know, Donnie Kay and I, we were remainers. So, yeah, we stay together. And then, of course, with Ruffin, it's been a good, it's like a family, David, to be honest with you. And it's a good family, so.
And through good times and bad, Bubba and Kyle, I tell you what, we all stick together. That's what's special about East Carolina, Eastern North Carolina in particular, when we've had floods, different things that happened. Didn't matter which background you came from, it didn't matter which color you are, no matter what. The bottom line is everybody stuck together. In this particular case with the Pirate Nation, with Pirate football, in good times and bad, we're always going to be together.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like a family. It really is a family, and you don't always agree with the decisions that are made, and sometimes it kind of hurts your feelings a little bit. But you got to be a man and grow up. You know, getting into this business, what can happen, and it happened, and you just got to grow up a little bit, and remember the good times, the 12 years that I had, that probably a lot of high school coaches did not have. Get to go to bowl games and just experience some of the opportunities that I had, and I cherish those opportunities. I really do.
I know it's been definitely a nice little ride for you. You're talking about 12 years. You have 3 different coaches. What were the differences between going from the first transition with John Thompson to Skip Holtz? What are the differences between those coaches?
Well, I think John was not really prepared to be a head coach. I'll be honest with you. He came in as a coordinator from Florida. He's a great guy, a real Christian man. And I don't really know the amount of money that he had to hire staff. He had a real young staff, 2 of which had really never played any football, any collegiate football. And then Skip comes in. Also, you have a change in athletic director, Coach Holland. And Coach Holland was the type of guy you want to work for. And he realized what it would take to get to the next level. And he did a great job of supporting Skip. And I think he probably gave him the money to hire his staff. I no doubt. Greg Hudson right on down, he had an excellent staff. But Skip ran it more like a business. He really did. It was a business. And identical, but roughly it was more like a family. But throughout all of it, it was still a big family. It really was. And, never was a time that I can remember that your kids were not welcome on the second floor. And yeah, your doors were always open, and you could always talk. I mean, Coach Connors and I here, and Jeff and I got to be closer friends, and I've cherished that friendship over the years.
A very special guy. We have the strength and conditioning coach, Jeff Connors, is here. He's going to be with us in a little while. And do you have any funny stories you can tell him, Coach?
About Jeff Connors?
Yeah.
Well, there's some things I need to tell, but I won't tell.
Because he's coming up next. He can get
Oh,
it.
he is. No, I'm not gonna let him have the microphone in a second, because he'll get me, but, it was Chuck Young, he was our minister, actually, and he and I roomed together on the road, and, so, yeah, it was a great opportunity. And I guess maybe they put me with Chuck because he could pray for me. And, I don't know.
Was he your babysitter?
I guess he probably was.
Or maybe you babysat him.
I don't know, but Chuck was a good friend, and he was. God, Jeff became good friends with him. I mean, I knew of Jeff. Jeff came to Williamston actually and spoke to our team in '99, and then when he came back to East Carolina, I had known of Jeff Connor, but I had not really, got to know the man and the person that he is, and he's just a good person. So it was just a good opportunity for me.
Well, I appreciate you being here tonight. I'll tell you what, this is gonna be an ongoing thing for us, very first event here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna keep you, obviously, on the podcast at different times coming on. And I appreciate everything you did for me and a lot of great students at Williamston High and at East Carolina. I appreciate this is what this night is all about, as we're honoring former coaches and players.
Yeah.
And a lot of great staff. There are a lot of people like you that were behind the scenes that people didn't know, that all the different phone calls you made and all the different, escorting players to class. I remember you talking about different, under one coach, I won't say which one. Different things like that you've done, so I appreciate you very much. And
Well, thank you, David, and we thank you for what you're doing for East Carolina athletics, especially football, and what your station's doing. I mean, Bubba, I didn't know Bubba, but I made it apparent years ago with Kyle. He's been around the block more than once, so.
That's right.
You guys call me if I can do anything to help high school football in this area and/or college football, just give me a call. I'll be glad to help you, especially you.
All right, appreciate you, Coach.
Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate you being here very much. I know he has to run, so we want to get him on. And next up, I tell you what, I'm gonna put him on the spot. And how about if we have one of the best running backs of all time at East Carolina? How about we get Scott Harley up here? Can we get him? What an honor to have him. And I remember that was actually you. The reason I reached out, you were the very first player that I reached out to. And you're very special, and I appreciate you. It means the world to have you here. I tell you, I know he's very low key, so we won't give him too many, but I wanted to say to you that it meant a lot. I remember the '96 season very well, very special in many ways. The very first one I covered after college as a 23-year-old. I'm not 23 anymore.
Neither am I.
But we wanted to have you on, and definitely, what memories come out? Are there certain games, certain players?
No, not really games or anything like that, but just the camaraderie between the teammates and, the bond we had. We did everything as a unit. Coach and staff, Coach Connors, I go see him on the regular, and, Coach Connors is like a father to me, and, gives me advice, he keeps me, on the straight and narrow, but just, the games are good, you have tapes and DVDs and YouTube, but, just the bond you have after the fact of the games, calling guys up, seeing guys getting married, seeing guys having kids, introduce, the people in your family. So it's more than football. And a lot of people don't understand that, it's a bond after the fact. But the games were definitely good. I'm not gonna sit here and say they're not, but that's just a short period of our lives. A lot of us are doing different things, work-wise, helping kids. Some of us got in trouble, like myself, getting back on a straight and narrow path. But definitely the bond and the games are good to remember, but the practices, because you're trying to be on the same page, and everybody wants to be on the same page. Just doing everything as a single unit, one heartbeat.
That's right, the '96 team was very special, 8-3
Yeah.
that year, and not going to a bowl. I know that had to hurt. That was a tough break. One of my favorite teams of all time for the Pirates.
Yeah, that was the start of like, I guess the BCS, and, a lot of teams were denied that had good records, but, it's just and I still say the same thing to this day, you got, like, even ESPN and some of these sports broadcasters, they have their favorites. And there's always a team that goes 11-0 that don't get a shot, then they get a shot next year, they still might not have a powerhouse that they had the year before. But, it should just be even across the board, just do a playoff and just do away with all these, big fancy games and everything, and just, like Division I AA and all these other divisions have a true champion.
Yeah.
So, that's just my opinion.
Well, if there's anybody that can give one, I remember the '96 season very well, where we literally with Coach Logan and certainly with the team, ride on the Harley. I tell you, there was many games I was just amazed. You put up video game numbers. I know that you're very low key about it, but I know Kyle, I know that we talk about it a lot, and so did Bubba as well with the different games. I know you wanted to talk about that tonight.
Absolutely. Two of the games that really stand out to me, Scott, about your career were the '96 games against South Carolina, where you ran for 291 yards, and then the games against NC State and Charlotte, where we won 50-29, and you ran for 351 yards. Both of those games were in the rain. What do you remember about those games, besides the fact that you ran for nearly 700 yards?
I say the same thing I said back years ago. The offense played good, defense played good, special teams played good. I don't want the spotlight to be on me, because it's a team effort. If the offensive line didn't do what they had to do, I wouldn't have a chance to run. So I'm always been a team player. I never wanted the spotlight to shine on me. Unfortunately, it did. But, just like I said, everybody from the ball boy to the bus driver had a part to do in that game. So, it was a good game. I don't remember it. And people laugh and say, how don't you remember it? I don't. It's just did what I was taught to do, play football. And it's good to have all the accolades, but I don't. I never played the game for the accolades. I just played the game as a love. As a kid coming from, humble beginnings, then to New Jersey, playing in the backyard to playing on TV. I'm just happy to, pick a good school, and I picked the right school, and I tell people, well, could you have went anywhere else? I said, no, I was here for a purpose, and I'm happy that I chose ECU as my school. I'm a purple and gold to the day I die.
I want to ask you real quick too about with high school football. There was a pipeline we had a while there with definitely New Jersey, Ohio, maybe Pennsylvania. There's a lot of good football in that area.
Oh, yeah.
Can we get that pipeline opened up again and come
if I'm
from?
not mistaken, ECU has a couple of kids that's coming from that area. Definitely New Jersey. I know a couple of kids from Maryland, DC area. So it's hopefully they do. For a little while they will only recruit a certain area, but there's kids all across the country that are just willing to play. So I'm glad just to be one of those kids that have a chance.
Are there any more Harleys in your family or anything?
Nah, I have a little
We'll take
girl.
them.
I have a little girl, so she wants to be a cheerleader. So I don't force her.
Scott, do you have any memories, or I'm sure you do you have really good memories of playing with Marcus Crandall, great quarterback while you were here?
Oh yeah, great guy. Rocket arm, strong, very strong. It's just, you think you can just come in and just use your natural talent. And that's when Coach Kurnat comes into play, because, in high school, you really didn't have to work out. You would do a little bit, but being on a good regimen, eating and running, and, people say you were a running back. I hated to run. Coach Kurnat might have some stories, so I know he might, reveal some of them, but I hated to run.
Maybe you should give us some money, some hush money, so he won't tell the story.
Nah, you can tell him, it don't bother me.
Okay. Keep it real.
It was a lot of good people that came through ECU years ago. A lot of talent, and some people went on to play professionally, some didn't. So you never know when you go to a school what's going to happen, and I'm just happy, everything that's happened to me, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So definitely, Marcus Crandall was A1 quarterback, an A1 person outside.
He was right down the road in our rival school in Robertsonville, being from Williamston, and what a tremendous talent. I think he's in Canada now as a coach, just from my understanding.
Yeah.
So if he's listening, I want to give him a shout out, because there was a lot of great games that guy played for the Pirates. A huge quarterback and one of the all-time greats.
Definitely.
Scott, I appreciate you so much being here and means the world. I know there's a lot of people watching on Facebook Live and certainly listen to the podcast, and it's great to, we always, the one thing that I learned about this whole experience the last few months is we always wondered, where are they now? We see you a lot locally because you're in Greenville, but you're wondering what happened to these guys, and I know you're doing well and you have a great fiance there and getting married anytime soon. Can we dance at your wedding?
Hey, you come to party. It's a celebration, it's not a death march.
That's right.
I might be hit aside the head anyway.
Yeah, I'm glad you have your backstory.
I don't even want to look over my shoulder.
All right, you can get a ride home with me. I'll take you.
I need to exercise. I
Uber.
live up the street. Nah, I'm not gonna take Uber. I'll put Bud and Jeff in the street, so I'm good.
Scott, thank you so much. It means the world. We could talk a few hours with you alone, for sure. Thank you so much. It means the world.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate everybody here tonight. We've got a lot of great guests here and a lot of great friends and family and new friends that we're making, a lot of new players that, in fact, Bubba, I appreciate, first of all, before we get other folks on the line, I know we've got phone calls coming. I want to thank this guy right here to my right. He is what I call the player and coach coordinator. He's set up a lot of interviews, and I'm lucky to have a voice. You put me through a lot there, but I appreciate that very much. I'll do anything for East Carolina, and I appreciate you for, we're brand new friends. We've only been friends a couple of months, but I appreciate everything you've done for us tonight.
I appreciate the kind words, David. I've loved the Pirates all my life. My dad is a 76 alum, so needless to say, I didn't have a choice in the matter, but I'm very thankful for that. And so many great memories of Pirate football as well as other Pirate athletics.
And Kyle from LaGrange, she's been with me every step of the way. We actually, this is a true story for people that don't know. I listen to Pirate Radio and I hear this guy, Kyle from LaGrange Barber. And I was like, I like this guy a lot. And I was like, I knew a Kyle Barber from, I don't know if that's the best LaGrange. Now it's not. Come to find out, the very first time we talked for about 2 hours on the phone. And come to find out, he said, your sister is Amy Richmond? And come to find out, we knew each other from, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? I don't even know how many minutes.
Long time ago when we were kids, or at least I was a kid. I think you've always been an old man.
Yeah, I have.
But known each other a long time, and it's been a lot of fun to be able to do this with David and get the opportunity to get some sort of involvement with East Carolina athletics and beyond just being a fan. I always wanted to do something like this, and David's given us, and Bubba the same way, that opportunity, so it's a lot of fun.
I couldn't do it by myself, and by the way, before we forget, another teammate that I wanted to mention that's not here tonight, the guy that was actually starting with me on the podcast, I want to give a shout out to his family. David Shepard was supposed to, in fact, he was going to try to be here tonight. He actually passed away June the 21st, we think, and so we want to give a shout out to him. I know he's going to be a teammate forever with us. It will be a different place, and certainly a correspondent from heaven, so to speak. So when we're thinking about him tonight as we're doing this podcast, and certainly want to honor him and honor all the great former players and coaches. And I know we've got some folks that we're going to get on the line, but while we're doing that, I know there are other folks. I want to get Coach Connors. I want to put him on the spot. Go ahead and get Coach Connors now. And while we're doing that. Appreciate him being here very much. And Coach, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
It's an honor to have you here tonight, and as long as you don't make me work out, I'll be good. Especially if you work this guy. He's been saying all along he was working out.
Please no.
Step up to the plate, I'm ready.
Got a lot of work ahead of you, Coach.
He can do it. He can do it. I mean, he's a miracle worker. I've seen the work he's done. Let me tell you, when I was first working with Henry Hinton and Troy Dreyfus back in the day, I would see them come in about 4:15, 4:30. And I'll never forget that very much, how you, I promised you that I would work out, but I saw the look on their faces, and I was like, man, I want no part of that. And I remember that for about 20 years ago.
Yes, when we had elite fitness trainers, and we started that training business here. I think it's probably the first personal training business here in Greenville. And we had about 20 trainers, and that thing grew. And we had those two gentlemen come in together. And so, yeah, it was all pretty interesting back then. We hit it pretty hard with them.
Speaking of back then, you actually, the first tour of duty for the Pirates was back, did you start with the Peach Bowl member? Is that the way back when?
My first year here was 91. And
great way to start, Red.
Unbelievable year, great time to come in. I was the only strength coach the entire summer. Bill Lewis hired me for that first summer, and We worked very hard. Those guys probably ran more than any team that I've ever run, and you know, it paid off. But a great group of young men who really put everything into it as far as the training was concerned, and really received me well that first year. And I was that's where I started falling in love with the Pirates, and you know, we ended up 9th in the country that year. So I'm very proud of that ring that I have, says number 9. So that was a great year.
It's great to be top 10 in the country, and of course 11-1 that year. And by the way, I failed to mention, I was going to mention when I introduced you, that you were inducted in 2016 into the Strength and Conditioning Coach Hall of Fame, and that's a big deal, huge honor for you, Coach. And definitely you were in my Hall of Fame back 20 years ago.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'll tell you what I'm most excited about right now is this summer. You know, we ended our summer about 2 days ago with what we call a little competition in the morning, gridiron ground, offense versus defense. Defense won 18-12. We had 11 events. I had 4 groups during the course of the summer, so my coaches and I were coaching 8 hours a day with football, and I thought our guys put in some really good work. I'm really excited about this year. Very excited about some of our new coaches on staff, and also the athletes that Scotty brought in mid-year have done extremely well for us. I think we've got a lot more depth on defense, and I'm really excited about what I saw this summer with regard to team chemistry. We're going to start camp with about 19 defensive backs, so I think the problems there are going to get resolved. We've got a lot more depth at linebacker. Really excited about our offensive line coach and the way that he's been received by our offensive linemen. And of course, I coach David Blackwell here, so I'm very familiar with him. And I know that he's going to do a great job as well. So I'm just really excited about this year. It's time to get jacked up and get this thing on the right track. And you know, I just can't wait till we play. I wish it was tomorrow.
I know you can play every single day of the year because you have that much energy.
Well, I mean, you can't be a strength and conditioning coach without energy, so you know, that's something that you have to bring to every group every day. You get in that 4th group of the day, and you're into that 6th hour of training, 7th hour of training. You got to bring it for that last group too.
Tell folks that are listening right now, or here, or watching on Facebook Live, what is it about? I know that there's the summer, and then we have fall camp coming up. What will the kids, when they come back in the beginning of August, I think the report, what will they be doing? Can you give us an idea behind the scenes?
Well, when we report, of course, one of the first things we'll do is a conditioning test with regard to what I do. So that's 2110s.
Do you hear that, Kyle? Can you do that?
2110s? I couldn't do 110.
So it's 2110s, 45 seconds rest, and each group has a different time that they have to make. Done a lot of different conditioning tests over the years. Some coaches don't even like a conditioning test when you report. These guys will have had about 10 days off, and now you have a lot of different things out there with regard to what you have to do for safety. If they've had time off, you got to give them a 1-to-4 rest relief ratio, for instance. So let's say that you're going to run 15 seconds, they need 1 minute rest in between those bouts of activity, things like that. But I know the coaching staff is chomping at the bit. I'm ready to pass the baton to them. I'm ready to watch these guys practice. And of course, camp has changed over the years as well. As far as camp goes, basically, when I played ball in college, you had 3-a-days. And then you had 2-a-days. And now you're down to 1-a-day. So things have changed very drastically over the years in relationship to the I guess you could say that the duress that you can subject an athlete to during camp. A lot of safety things involved, a lot of considerations for concussions involved as far as how much contact you have. And so things have changed, but you know, some of the things have probably changed for the better.
I was going to ask you, that was one of my questions as far as safety is concerned. You got to get the kids, the athletes, ready for that physical contact they're going to have. It's kind of a tough balance there, right? You want to make sure that you are getting them prepared, but at the same time, you don't want to get them hurt before the season even starts.
I think there's a lot of different approaches there. You know, I'm a strength and conditioning coach, so you know, I've got my own ideas because I did play football in college. You know, when I played football in college, every day was full contact for the most part. So to some extent,
And you turned out all right, I mean, we're seeing
I
that.
turned out all right. I have had a few concussions though. You know, I think that the way that things have changed, there's a lot of good things about that. But if we go back to, let's say, when Steve Logan was here, I also thought there was a lot of value in the way we started practice. When we started every practice with Oklahoma drill, stock drill, angle tackle, drills that were more physical, and kind of set the tone with those drills at the beginning of practice. So I think there's something positive that can be said for that. But at the same time, you know, you don't want to get people injured as well, so you got to find that balance.
And I know, Bubba, you had some questions for Coach, did you?
Yes, sir. Coach, you talked about the return of David Blackwell, a hire that I'm very excited about. Not only is he a Pirate, but he's a guy that has a tremendous track record as the defensive coordinator. So with that being said, I know since he's come back, he's talked about the dog soldiers. So
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about the dog soldiers and the origin of that, as well as some of the motivational tactics you used?
Yeah. Well, I fell into a responsibility through the 90s. I'm a very emotional person. I think I gave a little emotional, I expressed myself emotionally to the team one day in the locker room, and a couple of those guys, Junior Smith, I think Damon Wilson went to Coach Logan and said, you know, could Coach Connors talk to us on Friday nights? So, you know, if I thought that would help them, I was glad to do it. And Coach asked me to do it. So that's how this started. Is we had some Friday night emotional talks. We had a theme every week, and we would use that theme as you know, something that we would kind of build around. And so over a period of years, I did a lot of different things. I brought a lot of people in from the military, and you know, and I brought 2 guys in to fight before a game in the locker room, 3 rounds. And you know, I did a lot of things that were where they didn't know what I was going to do next. We had military people outside the hotel one night here in Greenville, and they set off a very loud, I'm not going to call it, I don't know really what I'd call it, but it was loud out there. And so it was right outside the room where we were talking to the guys. Another time I brought in you know, a guy that trained police dogs, and he brought a police dog in and set him up there and talked about discipline, things of that nature. But the dog soldier was a story that I got from a group of men, a group of very strong Christian men who were using the dog soldier story more for that purpose in relationship to you know, kind of finding more Christians out there and talking about commitment, things like that. So it's the Cheyenne Indian. The Cheyenne Indian would dismount, drop a stake in the ground, and fight to the death within the circumference of the circle, and would be tied to the stake. And so and that's where the phrase came, you can stake your life on it. And so when you look at football as being a territorial type of endeavor, particularly on defense, and even on offense, so you have one responsibility. And so what we talked about was we were going to have that responsibility as an individual on our football team. We're going to drive that stake into the ground and fight to the death. And if we had A gap or C gap, or if we had contain, or if we had deep third or whatever, that's the approach we were going to take every play. And you know, our guys really hung their hat on that. You know, Steve Logan does have some Indian in him, so you know, he has some Cherokee background. So we had a big mural of a dog soldier made, and we hung it in the locker room. I think that thing cost about $2,000 or $3,000. I don't know where it's at right now, but I like to have it because I put it in my garage if I can find it. But that's what the dog soldier is, and that's what we had dog soldier bandanas as awards. And our guys just really related to that. And I think that's what football is. You have to show up and you got to do your job. You have to do your job with that type of attitude and passion. And we know that at East Carolina, we have to get excited. We have to overachieve. We have to fight hard. And that's why we put so much emphasis on being in great shape, because we, for a period of years, we did some things that, you know, that nobody else was going to do. We run 10 300s with 30 seconds rest. Nobody was out there doing that. And really, that was an attitude. And really, the athletes pushed it to that level. I can tell you this summer that every Monday this summer we ran 2,280 yards. We did what we call power units. So it's a little bit different than 300s, but it's really the same type of commitment. And that's why I'm excited about this year, because those guys went out there and made that commitment. They went out there and ran really hard every Monday. And you have to change things a little bit with regard to rest relief. But at the same time, I see that same type of commitment now. And we can talk about how things have changed over the years with generations and with, with athletes and so forth. But I think sometimes the change has occurred with the leadership and maybe kind of what's been going on at home with parents and so forth. So my sense of leadership and my sense of the way that I coach has never changed. If anything, it's become more extreme. I'm not going to change what I do, and I'm going to find a way to train people hard.
Coach, speaking of this year, I heard the other day that Reed Herring's put on about 30 pounds since he's been here. How do you do that the right way? How do you get a guy to put on 30 pounds of muscle?
Well, I think that's different for everybody as far as how they respond to training and how well they're going to eat and how much the eating is structured. I can tell you that place that I was at before I came back here, we did have a training table. And not many people really understand what a training table is. And if you're going to have a training table, you have to make it mandatory initially, because the guys, some of them do not want to eat breakfast. They're not going to show up. And so initially, you have to make it mandatory. And then what we did at that place is, instead of making them eat at 6 o'clock in the morning, we had a 3-hour brunch. And we hired 4 chefs and 2 nutritionists. Of course, that took a little bit of resources. But at the same time, it was very worthwhile, because when they saw what they were going to eat for brunch, and then what they saw what they were going to eat for dinner after practice, the food was so good that you didn't have to force them to come and eat it. They were going to be there because the food was so good. And Butch Davis made sure of that. And so I think that's something that everybody needs to do in their program, because a lot of times if you give these guys money and you tell them, hey, you're on your own, go out and eat, they're not going to make those good decisions in relationship to proper nutrition. You can say, well, hey, just send them out there and eat a burger, they'll be fine, it's football. No, that's not the way it is anymore. I mean, it's a science. And so you have to understand that you have to have a certain amount of food for energy, and a certain amount of different types of foods and specific types of foods for recovery. And that's what's been going on in relationship to our profession. So as far as Reed is concerned, he's up to 197. Of course, I've said this many times, I made fun of his arms ever since he's been here, because I told him he's got angel hair pasta hanging out of his uniform. It's embarrassing to me, so so now as he's up to linguine. But I really have a lot of respect for Reed Herring, because he's kind of a quiet, unassuming type of young man. He works extremely hard. He's got a real cool head. He's got a great arm. He did run a 4.5 for us indoor several times this summer. He can run, and he's put on some weight. He's really made a commitment, and I'm very proud of the way that all of our quarterbacks have worked this summer. I really am. But I feel really good about that young man, and I'm confident that he can get the job done.
I'm very excited about that. In fact, on the podcast, a couple episodes ago, I talked that very thing. I think he's going to surprise people this year. I really do.
I would agree.
It's going to be a lot of fun, and I tell you what, this time of year, it feels like that it should be next week, but it's still a long ways away. I know it's not for you feeling like, because this is the heart of the season for you, but for Pirate fans, Pirate Nation, folks listening in on the podcast and watching on Facebook Live, it feels like forever when we're in the month of July. That's why we decided to do this event when we did.
Well, I'll go out and talk about the Pirates now. If somebody asks me to come talk about the Pirates, I'll do it. I'm very happy to do it, because I'm very proud to have been a part of this program for so many years, and I'm looking for us to get this thing turned around. I really feel good about I really feel like Coach Montgomery's hitting home runs right now with recruits. It's been very impressive to see, and it's been very impressive to see the 10 young men that he brought in mid-year, and the way that they work, and the way that we are developing depth in certain areas. And with 19 DBs coming in this summer, I think that situation is going to get fixed. I believe we're going to have a good football team, because I've seen at least 30 football teams and work with 30 football teams year-round at this level, and I know what I'm looking at. At the same time, part of the deal is how good the other teams are going to be that we're playing. We had some good teams over the years sometimes, but you get out there and you want to play good teams, So you gotta have a little bit of good fortune. You gotta be able to outcoach people. You gotta be able to outlast people from a conditioning standpoint. And so, we want to be as prepared as we can possibly be going into this season, but we also know that we've got a challenging schedule. But I really believe that this program is getting back on track, and I feel very good about that. And I think that everyone out there should feel good about it and be encouraged. And go ahead and show up and lose your mind the first game, have some fun, and let's get in the stadium and let our football team know that we're there to support them. And we're excited about getting this thing turned around.
And we're gonna right the ship, and we're gonna have a good season. I feel it, Coach. I could talk to you for hours for football. It means a lot to me. I know Kyle and also Bubba to be here tonight with us. A huge honor to have Coach Jeff Connors. Thank you so much for being here tonight at Professor Pools.
I appreciate the invitation. Thank you.
And that's Coach Jeff. And we have another guest, don't we, on the line? Do we have a?
Yes, a member of the 1991 team, Zaim Cunmulaj.
And let's see if we can go to the phones. Zaim, are you there? And we'll check and see. Good, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I know that you're part of a very special team, that Peach Bowl team in '91, and means a lot. I know that Bubba told me that you were real excited for this event tonight, and it means a lot that you're on the phone with us now.
What are your memories of working with Coach Connors or him coaching you up during the summer, getting you ready for the fall playing?
Yeah, can you hear us? We'll keep working on that with him. And Zaim, can you hear us now? And we'll keep here. We'll actually get back to see if we can get him back on. But what a great 1991. 1991 was a big year for us. And can you hear us now, Zaim? Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, we wanted to talk to you about the 1991 season and your time here at East Carolina.
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
We're doing good.
Doing well, thank you. Yeah, what was your thoughts on the '91 season? I know with the '91 season, it was huge because of it seemed like I was listening today to a lot of great memories from that season. 11-1 on that year. It would have been my freshman year, but I transferred in, but I was always been a Pirate, and a lot of great memories. I was at the Peach Bowl. What do you remember about the actual game against NC State?
what were your memories of the Pittsburgh game where Jeff Blake scores a 2-point conversion for the win in Dowdy Ficklen Stadium?
That was a very special game with the Pitt game. I'll tell you what, in fact, we have a very special guest that will have a story about that. We'll have that probably in the 9 o'clock hour. A very special guest, don't you think, there, Kyle?
Absolutely, yes.
And he has a story to tell about that. You know, it's amazing through that season, you would have never guessed that you make it that far, but certainly there was a chance the Pirates might not, if they hadn't won the Pitt game, you don't have a Peach Bowl.
Absolutely. Do you remember what are your memories of the Virginia Tech win to kind of seal the deal to get the Peach Bowl invitation and the celebration thereafter when the Peach Bowl invitation came in?
Yeah, celebration penalty there, which is, as someone that loves sports, I've always hated that rule because when you're playing in a game of the magnitude of football, you're gonna celebrate, and I just wish that they would get rid of that rule period. I wanted to ask you about what a tremendous coach with Bill Lewis. He was amazing and had a nice run there for the 91 season. Talk about Coach Lewis if you have a chance now. think we have an idea who that might be.
His son might have played here.
We'll leave it at that. Well, I'll tell you what, Zaim, I appreciate you very much. Good luck coaching this year, and we definitely can use a lot of players. It doesn't matter which state, but there's a lot of great players coming out of Michigan, and good luck to you this season. And definitely love to have you back in Greenville anytime you get a chance to come by and see us. All right, go Pirates.
All right, appreciate it, Zaim.
Well, next, absolutely appreciate it. We're honoring here. The Pirate Football Nostalgia Party continues. In fact, next up, we're going to get from the original Washington, that would be correct, not Little Washington. We'll teach you something. You're from the western part of the state. Don't say Little Washington. They can say Little Washington, but let's bring up Braddy. He was hired from 88 to 91, and I want to bring him up. In fact, his brother is a judge local here, so I'm glad I don't get in trouble. I know Stephen's got a background. Obviously, we'll talk about that as well, but huge night for us here. Appreciate folks listening on the Sports Objective podcast and on Facebook Live. It means a lot that you're spending time with us as we Pirate Nation. And Stephen, I knew the name and I know your brother very well, but it's an honor to have you here and to learn more about you and your time here as a player with the Pirates.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here tonight.
Let's talk about, you actually came here at so that would have been under Art Baker starting off in 88?
Coach Baker recruited me. I remember the night he called. That was back when you had the old school phones. I remember my mom answering the phone, and she came back downstairs. She was crying. He had offered a scholarship, but yes, Art Baker was the head coach, and when I signed my scholarship with East Carolina.
Art Baker is a very special man to me because he had an FCA day in 1986. In October of 86, I became a Pirate fan because of his time with us. He spent a lot of time with us, and I was on the field right before the game. And because of Art Baker, that's the reason why. If anybody wonders, that's when I became a Pirate fan, because of Coach Baker.
Oh, he was a good man. He, he had a big heart. And in all honesty, and I say this, in a good way, he was about too nice at times as far as being the head football coach. But, I remember there were days where it was 100 degrees or hotter, and there was a couple of times where we came off the field early, and some of the other coaches were looking around like, we we need to stay out here and keep working. But he was just a good man, a good Christian man, good family man, and I definitely appreciate what he did for me.
I know that you, a part of coaching that we don't like is the coaching business is that coach unfortunately leaves or gets fired, maybe retires. So you had to transition from Art Baker to Bill Lewis. What was that like?
Well, I'll never forget when Coach Lewis came in and he called all the football players together to meet us. You could tell from the get-go he was very intense. He was a very detailed coach. As far as planning for games and stuff, Coach Lewis was just so detailed. I mean, everything down to the specialty teams. You know, he was as far as that was the biggest difference I could tell as far as him being the head coach and with Coach Baker, he did a great job. But you know, Bill Lewis is just such a motivator. And he could have you so fired up, you'd be ready to run through a brick wall. And that was just one of the biggest differences as far as me personally, I could tell.
That 91 season, we're talking to Zaim, and now we're having you on. What was special to you? What stands out for that magical season, probably the pinnacle season for the Pirates being 11-1 in 1991?
Well, just that senior class, the whole team was such a tight-knit group. Even whenever we got behind, it's like we never got frustrated, we never got flustered. You knew that you could look at the man beside you and you could rely on him. You could tell our junior year, my junior year, that we were going to be good. I mean, you could see something special was building, and we had some close games. We lost by 4 points, I believe it was, to Georgia at their homecoming my junior year, and there was some other close games, and it was just a tight-knit group, and not just as far as the games goes, but just a camaraderie in the dorms, and doing things together as a team. It was like a big family. But the games, some of the big games like the Pittsburgh game, the Syracuse game, the Virginia Tech game, they all stick out in my mind. And it was just a great season, and it's something I consider all of my teammates family members, and we were just a tight-knit group, and I'll never forget it.
To have a season like that, you have to have great team chemistry and great locker room leadership. What are your memories of playing with Robert Jones, and who were some of the other team leaders on the defensive side of the ball that year?
Well, Robert, obviously, he worked hard. I mean, that was he led by example. In the weight room, on the field, you never saw Robert slacking up. He was going 110% all the time. And I think not just Robert, but everybody. And it feeds down, trickles down through everybody. Obviously, and my roommate was Ken Braddy. He was the other starting inside linebacker. Ken was a hard worker. Mountain Boy came in, and I knew from the get-go it was just something I liked about him. We, as far as roommates, I kind of fed off that myself. I mean, because I like that type of style. Going wide open, full speed. He had that leadership quality about him too. You get down to the game, you kind of yank a knot up in somebody if you have to, and sometimes that would take place in the huddle. Every now and then somebody would be getting a little bit slack. Somebody grab a hold of it, you yank a knot in you, and we just fed off of that.
I remember the Peach Bowl year. In fact, I heard it again today. Hard to believe, but not only the Illinois was the only one who lost the season, but there was 8 comebacks in that season. Unbelievable. Out of 12 games, 8 of them you had to come back. What does that say about a team that 8 different times you have a deficit and you stick together and then you pour it on, including the Peach Bowl?
Well, again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Being able to rely on a man beside you. I never really saw us, and I can be, this is the honest God's truth. I never really saw us get flustered, even when we got behind. From the players to the coaches, everybody. We never got flustered. We just kept working from one play to the next, and just expecting something good to happen. And you know, and you could feel the tide turning. We'd get down, you know, here goes a score. We'd have a big fourth down stop. The Pittsburgh game, that's one that you talked about memories earlier. I mean, I remember there was a big 4th and 1 play where we were able to come together as a defense and had a big stop, and and you kind of feel the tide turning at that point in time. But it just you could always rely on the people beside you, and that was the biggest thing. We never got flustered.
What was the locker room like after the Pitt win and after the NC State win? What was that celebration and atmosphere like in the locker room? I imagine it was electric.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, I tell people all the time after the Pittsburgh game, before we actually were able to make it to the locker room, because everybody rushed the field, and I was gift slam. I played. I platooned in with Jerry Dillon. Alternated with him a defensive end, outside linebacker position, and I also played on specialty teams. And I was in on that last series, when they failed to score. And I remember the players, the fans rushed the field, and I hugged so many people hugged my neck. I was as get out from hugging people's neck as I was playing the ball game. But we just got into the locker room, and it was just an amazing feeling. I know personally, my dream was to play in the bowl game when I first started college, and just knowing that was going to become a reality. It was the greatest feeling in the world, and I think everybody else felt like that too. We knew we had something special, and it was just everybody was ecstatic, and it was one of the best feelings in the world.
I know it has to be very special and something that Tiger fans will remember forever. A lot of the times when people find out where I went to school, they always refer back, especially if they're, in my case, in the mid-40s, they always are, early 40s, they always talk about the Peach Bowl. So I hear that a lot, and I know that we have a lot of great memories, but we've got a lot of great memories ahead. I really feel good about the program and the direction we're going, and you're part of a special time at East Carolina, and we want to honor you tonight. Thank you so much. In fact, before we let you go, tell folks what you're doing now. I know you work with one of my good friends. I want to give him a shout out. Jason Williams is listening in right now, so I want to say hello to him.
Yeah, Jason's a good friend of mine. I'm a juvenile court counselor. I work with juvenile justice. I've got 25 years in now, and I work with kids from 6 to 15 years old that's gotten in trouble with the law, and we try to get them on the right track. It's a very rewarding job, and Jason has definitely done a lot for the juveniles in the community to try to help them out as well, and it's good working with them.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much. It means a lot that you would stop by and be with us tonight and give a chance to honor you and all the players that couldn't be here tonight, all the coaches. We want to salute them, and it's going to be a tremendous season. I cannot wait for September. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, I know we've got coming up next, running back recently under Ruffick McNeil. Let's get Chris Hairston up here. And we got a lot of great players we'll try to squeeze in between now and the next hour and a half or so. Chris, thank you so much. I know that you've been patient. We've been trying to get as many players as we can. Thank you so much for being with us.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me.
I want to ask you about your time here at East Carolina. I know that running back, this guy right here, by the way, you know what his favorite position is? Running back.
I may look like an offensive lineman, but I love running backs.
So do you have a question for Cal? Do you have a question for Chris out of the gate?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of just generalized question. There's a great legacy of running backs at East Carolina, from Chris Johnson to Scott Harley, Junior Smith, Jarris McPhail, and yourself. And Montavious Cooper. Just how important was it to you to keep the legacy of great running backs going when you stepped into the starting role after Montavious graduated?
It was very important. We had a lot of great backs. I learned from a lot of them, since I came in. Learned a lot. Had a lot of guys from Scott, and a lot of guys from Xavier's and Breon Allen also. I was playing alongside with them, so it was just great to just keep that going and keep that spirit at the running backs. So it was a lot of hard work, but it paid off, and it was the greatest years of my life.
I know, Chris, with your time, I wanted to ask you we know there's a special coach, talk about your time with Coach Ruffick McNeil.
great guy, probably one of the greatest coaches ever. I mean, that's the reason why I came here. My first offer from college was from Wisconsin. I turned it down and I came here once I got here and was around coach and just seeing how everything operated and the atmosphere here, and he's just a great guy. It's no words for him. I mean, he's just a great guy. I miss him.
When he says he loves you, he really means it, and he hugged everybody. He hugged everybody, didn't he?
Oh,
It seemed like he hugged. If he were in the room right now, he would make sure that he's right over there. I wanted to ask you about the recruiting process. Do you remember what he told you about East Carolina, or was there something? What was it that had you seal the deal to be a Pirate?
He said, he told my parents, he said, I'm gonna be his daddy from here. He said, I'm gonna take care of you. I'm gonna take care of him. He's gonna grow up. I'm gonna teach him everything. It's not just about football, life skills too. So, I mean, I came in a boy and left a man.
Not to be negative, but how shocked were you when Ruffin was fired? I mean, how did it hit you? It had hit you pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, it hit everybody hard. It was a tough pill to swallow, but I mean, it really hurt. But to see him doing good, being successful somewhere else is just a great feeling. And seeing he's happy, and back with his old coaches and everything. So, life goes on. So.
It's a tough business, and we mentioned Coach Ruff, but obviously doing very well in Oklahoma now with another guy, Lincoln Riley. You still keep in contact with him now?
Ruff, sometimes I talk to him sometimes on social media, Facebook, and Riley, I haven't really got to meet up with him and talk to him, but yeah, Riley was a great coach, he really was. He knew what he was doing. I remember, just like it was yesterday, I missed playing under him. He would get after you, when I first came in, I didn't know what to expect. I'm out there, they call your number, next man up, get your reps in practice. Sometimes I miss some, I'm young, I don't know what's going on, everything moving so fast, so it's like I'm just trying to get the hang of it, and Riley get out and you miss something, but I mean, he was on you hard, but he knew everything he was doing.
And they're doing all right out there in Norman, right? Out in Oklahoma, I think they're gonna be all right.
Oh, yeah.
Coach Ruff and Lincoln Riley. In fact, there's a couple more guys out there that are doing, Ryan Daugherty and a few others that are out there. I know with special teams helping out Coach Ruff and Lincoln Riley, but certainly I know that, what are you up to these days? I know that you live here locally in Greenville, don't you?
Yeah, I was. I'm now relocated to Charlotte, so I'm a logistics account executive for a company called TQL. So I'm out there now, and I'm just enjoying life. Life after football is, at first it's tough, but I mean, you learn a lot. It molds you into a different person. Football, it changed my life, and I appreciate it every day.
Well, we appreciate you very much. I know that we got a few more players we got to get to, but I appreciate you being a Pirate. It means a lot, and it means a lot that you're here tonight with us here at the Pirate Football Nostalgia Party. Thank you so much.
Yes, I appreciate y'all.
All right, Chris Hairston, let's give it up for him. What a great, he's a great one back. In fact, we want to bring in Marc Washington. Marc is here, and we'll get him in. And man, we've got a lot of, I tell you want to talk about how special the Peach Bowl year is. We've got a tremendous amount of players that have responded to us, right, Bubba? I mean, you're the, what I call the player and coach coordinator. We had a lot from the Peach Bowl.
The response was tremendous. Obviously, we've already talked to two guys who were part of that 91 football team with Steve Braddy and Zaim Cunmulaj. And when I think back about that Peach Bowl, what comes to mind as far as Marc Washington goes is what he did when I think it was either a tackle for a loss or a sack. And I just remember him getting up and just totally shaking every limb on his body and then doing a neck roll. I can see it to this day, even though I was 10 years old at the time.
Yeah, it was just the energy that, came out of me, and I was just enjoying being a part of history that I know maybe I'd never get a chance to do again with a quick group of guys. Like Steven said, we had a camaraderie and a love for each other that Coach Kurnat brought to his new conditioner and the rest of the staff. So it was just fun to be with those guys and come off the bench and help.
I think that that was actually the freshman year of my college career, and I remember that each game you're going, wow, it's just I get goosebumps thinking about that right now. After that Illinois game, I remember that game thinking, man, we got robbed. I remember being around the streets with different people talking to them, Pirate fans, and then we got robbed, and And here we go, we're 0-1, and then who would have ever thought 11-1? It's just amazing.
It was, you know, we actually lost the game, but what happened was we actually believed in ourselves more, not knowing that we were as good as we were. Even though coming off that junior year, like Steven said, we realized we had something special, but we didn't know how special until after that game. We came so close.
I know with one thing that we always talk about being a Pirate is a chip on his shoulder. After that game, or was it a certain time before even the first game of the season, you guys played at a level that I had never seen before, being a Pirate fan by the 5th year.
Yes, it just, like I said, brought out the best of us. And when you got strength and conditioning on your side, like Steven said, we never fluttered, we never got flustered. We just kept believing in ourselves, and then, of course, you guys, 12-man, Pirate Nation, we believe brought the rest of it to the forefront, and we fed off that. We really did.
You went on the road and beat the top 25 Syracuse team. It was the first time an East Carolina Pirate football team had beaten the top 25 team. Was that kind of the moment that you guys realized that you could do something extremely special, or was that already in your head? Did you already know it?
I actually believe that was the moment that woke us up to the fact that we could go anywhere, any place, and play anybody, and we could compete 4 quarters. If you didn't watch out, we could beat you.
I tell you what, with the Peach Bowl year, I think back over and over that year was so magical. One of my good friends, he's vacationing right now, but I was listening to that today of, I know that Coach Bill Lewis had a song for Kenny Rogers, Put Your Heart Into It. And I want to get I'm getting goosebumps literally right now thinking about that. I heard that song, and our friend David Horn put together a song, actually YouTube, if you get a chance. We'll try to see if we can play it tonight. If we can't, we'll definitely put it up on the podcast. But can you talk about that with Coach Lewis and that song? It was really special. I was driving around Greenville, running errands before this event tonight, listening to that song, and I was like, man, it brought back a lot of memories.
I tell you what, if they don't think, you know, these big guys, these football players are emotional, they just don't know. Steve can tell you the same thing. We were up in that locker room. First, it was kind of like, this is corny. Then you start listening to the lyrics, you really calm down and got the gist of what the song was about. You're like, oh my goodness. It just drew you closer together as teammates and coaching staff. And it was, a guy had great choice and motivating us. Like Steven said, he could just put things together and you believe.
Song is by Kenny Rogers, Put Your Heart Into It, and the Gambler is a little under the weather, and we hope that he gets better. Kenny Rogers is, so I'm a huge fan of him, and when I hadn't thought about that song in a long time, and it brought back a lot of great memories. What about when you talk about Pirate Nation, that's what made me a fan, is coming to a game at, then it was, that's how old I am, Kyle, it was Ficklin Stadium, so I have to, a lot of times I just say Ficklin. What was it about? Can you tell us what was it like playing in front of Pirate Nation?
I tell you what, it's 50,000 max capacity now. The Pittsburgh game at 36,000 was just electric. It was so much energy in that stadium, I just can't describe it. I actually didn't feel like I was touching the ground from the adrenaline. You didn't feel contact when you hit people because it was that much adrenaline flowing in that stadium. And everybody got behind the defense on the noise. We all attacked Pittsburgh, and they were down. They had like 10 guys into the NFL.
And they've always had a really good football team, going all the way back as long as I remember. I remember very well for the Peach Bowl year. I wanted to ask you about the Peach Bowl game itself. A lot of people talk about Jeff Blake, and of course it was a miracle comeback, but a lot of people don't talk about the fact that you guys did not let them score. Kyle, you see I'm a defensive guy, I've got to bring that up, but the defense did not allow, I think, was it 20 unanswered East Carolina scored?
27 minutes.
Yeah.
I was just watching the game the other day, because I hadn't seen it twice in its entirety. And I was watching some of the younger kids that I trained, and it was just unbelievable the fact that they didn't score. We blitzed every play. Again, that's that conditioning that Coach Connors is bringing back to the forefront. I feel like they let him do it like he wants to do it. And you can tell he's got everybody excited. And the guys, you know, when I'm in the locker room, I try to say this guy right here can win 8 games just on conditioning for the program. Just believe in the system, run, do what he say. Not gonna keep. And it's just hard to describe you never get tired, you never doubt yourself. You just keep putting your head down, like Steven said, you keep working, and then you look up and you held them to no points and scored 20 points. It just don't make sense.
And it's a very, you know, I know it's Saturday, but that's one game that I actually remember the score 37-34. It was, in fact, I listened to Jeff Charles, our friend, today, giving that call again. They're going for the tie. The Wolfpack is going for the tie. And I remember being there at the last game at Fulton County Stadium where the Braves used to play in Atlanta, thinking, I can't believe that they're actually, Dick Sheridan is going for the tie. What was it, were you guys as players, were you shocked as I was as a fan that they're going for the tie?
We realized they knew they couldn't beat us, so the worst case scenario, they wanted to walk out with a tie, which we would have done that. We'd have went for it, because that's just the way we played all year, of course, 8 comebacks. And then the other beautiful thing was, I think they had 25 to 30% of their fans at Beth not knowing. We came back 7 times and didn't believe, and we did. It was awesome.
It definitely was, and there's a lot of games that you're very proud that you were there, and a lot that I've been on the road with the Pirates, but certainly at Dowdy-Ficklen, but that's one that I'm very glad. My best friend and I were in a small BMW, and I was visiting in Charlotte to his uncle's house, and we drove a small BMW in the back seat like this the whole way for about 4 hours to get to that game, but it was well worth it. It was well worth it.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you about what you're up to now. I know you trained like you were talking about earlier. Can you talk about your business? Maybe there's people listening right now that they want to get a competitive edge, or the kids or people you're training?
Yes, I appreciate it. I'm currently at Max Sports Performance, Max Fitness Training. I started in '96, training, working on Coach C. When I got here, got that break of a lifetime, and what I'm trying to do is find the next young group of Pirates that want to, play in the Brooklyn go, or they bump their head, they want to go somewhere else, we'll forgive them, but of course I'm back from all be Pirates, and just like Jeff said, I try to push the athlete to be the best they can be, and that's that Pirate blood, that sweat purple in me.
It definitely was. Hopefully we can get more kids your way, and then train them properly, and scare them to death, whatever you have to do to get them right and ready, because we want all the best Pirates on the ship. Right, Sam?
Absolutely, yeah. We need as many kids from Eastern North Carolina to wear the purple and gold as possible, and working with guys like Marc Washington's a great way to start them out.
Appreciate it. Hope is one of them, and Marion Vines is another one of the guys that came through the ranks at a young age. We've got about 4 or 5 more just getting recruited by us, so I'm hoping they see the right way.
We'll keep that pipeline in Greenville, and hopefully they'll stay home and wear that purple jersey. Marc Washington, what an honor to have you. And thank you so much, and appreciate you. And that's what this night's all about, is to honor great coaches and players and staff throughout the years. That's why Pirate football and Pirate Nation is so big, that we have such a huge fan base and a passionate fan base as players like yourself. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, give it up for our Beach Bowl champion, Marc Washington. Not every day to be Beach Bowl champion, for sure. And thank you so much, Marc. And I know, Bubba, you're the player coordinator, so help me out. I lost track because I was getting emotional here thinking about the Beach Bowl. Who are we going to now?
We've talked to 3 guys so far from the 1991 Peach Bowl champion team, which is so special, but a team that is also very special is the 1983 team. Went 8-3, lost 3 games by a combined 13 points at Florida State, at Florida, and at Miami. And Miami, of course, won the national championship that season under Howard Schellenberger. And we have with us from that 1983 team, he was actually 81-83, 3 years that he lettered, Chuck Northcutt.
Chuck, come on up here. What an honor. That was right before my time as a Pirate, but that's one of the great things about doing this show. We've learned so much, and I know a lot. I know about the '83 team, and we want to have you on because I know there's. You guys were, speaking of a special group, you guys were very special.
Well, I think we didn't know how good we didn't have it back then. The dorm rooms were not air conditioned, of course. We didn't have the facilities. We practiced 4 days. The horn sounded at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. That was probably the most sickening sound I heard. And I've got my friend Charlie Choo Justice out there, and he and the manager group tried their best to get our our uniforms wash and dry between those 4-day practice, but most of the time we were putting on wet uniforms for them. But it was a very special group, a very confident group. Even though that we didn't have that kind of national notoriety, within our team, we felt like we could beat anyone. And really didn't care who we played, where we played them, and had that kind of confidence, and it kind of helped some of the other guys that came up later. I think, I don't know if Marc probably remembers it, but a lot of the guys, when they came and watched East Carolina football in the 1983 season, made their minds up that they wanted to come to ECU.
And speaking of which, I can say this during my era, that because of the Peach Bowl, there were guys who were a couple years younger than me. The reason why they decided to come to East Carolina, well, I can say that I got 2 people I can think of off the top of my head. They picked East Carolina because they saw the game on ESPN against NC State. They said, I'm going to East Carolina, so I can relate to that.
Yeah, and it's interesting that year you talked about some of the most memorable moments. The second game of the year, we lost to Florida State 47-46, and there was a couple very questionable calls. If they had replay back then, they would see that the quarterback was down, knee down, elbows down, and you guys can watch the highlights of 1983 rewind on the YouTube. So they've got highlights from that year, and you can just see what kind of players we had. But that was game was the first nationally televised game East Carolina had played. It was on TBS, and it was before the largest crowd that ever witnessed a college football game to that date at that time. So when we beat them, it was a mad rush on the field, and I remember my dad jumping over the hedges back then, along with all the others to come out and celebrate with the team. So that was a special memory.
People always talk about the comeback in the 91 Peach Bowl against NC State, but that 83 game against State that you're talking about, East Carolina was actually down in the 4th quarter in that game. What do you remember about the comeback?
I think it was that we were not going to be denied, and you had players like Ernest Viner, who was a senior that year. On the sideline, we made up our minds that we were just not going to lose to this team. And we went in with that kind of mindset all the time. And I think it was just a matter of buckling down and just playing our hearts out and denying them in front of their massive crowd. But we were well represented.
In fact, the 99 season was the first time that NC State traveled here to Greenville, by the way, I want to throw that, but amazing. Hey, like, you guys from the old school are like me, anytime, anywhere, any place will play you, right?
That's right, and I think back then we had well-conditioned guys, and strong guys. We had Terry Long, who was the strongest player in the country as a college player, and also the strongest player in the NFL, as an NFL player. But we also were in that hitting shape where you go out and knock heads. You can, and I respect, and I think Coach Connors recognized that you can be in good shape as far as conditioning, but when you get up and start hitting and really knocking heads, that's another kind of shape altogether. And Coach Emery really pushed that. He was quite the motivator, and it led to some really special team, special games.
What are your memories of playing with a guy that was kind of before his time in terms of athletic ability, Gizmo Williams?
But Henry Williams, we called him Hump back in the day. Hump was special. He was like, I don't even think he was 5 foot tall, but he was fast. He was a bolt of lightning. he talked like a munchkin. And I think he electrified the fans with his flip in the end zone after he would return a punt or a kickoff or a touchdown, which he was the leading returner that year in the country for touchdowns and punts.
And it's unfortunate, that's part of the game. I remember being a kid that's missing now, and not to go on a tangent about rule changes, but I would like to see the fun put back in football, because those kind of things really jack up when you're a fan watching a game and you see a big moment and a guy scores a touchdown. It's not every minute that somebody scores a touchdown for starters, but when you see a guy do something like that in the end zone, I don't think they should get a flag. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, he didn't get a flag back then,
Right.
so
Right.
that was, but it was something that energized the crowd. And, you know, one thing about the '83 team, many might not know, but they were on that senior class of '83, there were 8 guys drafted in the NFL. In the
That's
draft.
amazing.
And if you take the whole team, all the members of that team, there were 14 NFL players from that team. Probably 4 or 5 Super Bowl rings. Ernest Miner has one. He was a senior with me. Steve Hamilton has one with the Redskins. He was a senior that year. So we have a lot of great memories, and as the other players have said before, there's a lot of camaraderie. We keep in touch. Ernest Miner and we talk often. I get him Cuban cigars when I'm traveling internationally, along with Tony Collins. He likes those too. But I think Coach Emery had tough love, but he had real love. And right now, we would tell each other as players, "We love you, brother." And I think that's what's lasting about the experience, is the love we share for each other as time goes by. And we think back about those 3 games, and certainly we were a national championship caliber team. All those teams were ranked in the top 6 when we played them. And one can argue a couple calls another way, and that would have been 11-0 season. And then what do you do with the Pirates and an unknown entity? But anyway, it's probably a season of really great feeling and also a what-if type of experience.
A very special season, a very special player, a very special team. Chuck Northcutt, thank you so much. Another great player. That's why we're doing this, because there's hundreds of players that come through this program, but that team, the '83 team, will be very special to me and a lot of folks that are in Pirate Nation. And if you're young and you don't know about the '83 team, here's, like you said, YouTube, right?
Yeah, go to YouTube and that '83 Rewind. And I will also say that from '84 to now, I've been a Pirate Club member, so I would also urge former players that after they're done playing, become Pirate Club members and give back.
Amen to that. I know they'll take your donation, definitely your pledge on Monday morning, right?
Oh yeah, they're always open for the Pirate Club Bank, that's for sure.
I believe it's 252-737, help me out, 4,500?
4540.
4540, okay, so 252-737-4540. Let's get that indoor practice facility. There's got a lot of, we could do a whole podcast, that's a whole nother show. Don't get me started about that, but thank you so much, Chuck, I appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely, and what a great thank you, Chuck. And next up, we have with us somebody that's very important, and that would be to this program, Chuck Young, who is the minister for, yes, give him an applause. I know that he came in 1998, so he's seen a few coaches in his day, and Chuck, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you as well.
No, I appreciate it. The honor's all mine. We've been honored to be able to serve and love and be kind of behind the scenes with an awful lot of young men. So.
So that's, 20 years have gone by. Can you tell us favorite memories, things, stories that you can tell on the air, maybe the things you don't want to tell, but...
Well, there's kind of this confidentiality
Right, exactly.
that the pastor kind of has. We have, from the start, Joyce Stroud was kind of that behind the scenes person for a long time as the secretary to the head coach that we'd have never made it here without her, because they were starting their 3 days when I came for a visit, hoping to get a few minutes with Coach Logan, and had she not said, "No, you really need to meet with this guy." God had orchestrated a number of things. There was some scream for some equal access from some other religion that caused them to cancel their coaches' Bible studies because he didn't want to get into a mix of different things. And I actually walked in his door the next day as somebody from the outside that could make it happen. We didn't know what it would look like. There was no meal table back then either. So for once a week for 20 years, we've been the meal table for the Pirate football team, and different night for the baseball team and track and et cetera. But we just started feeding guys. And so that fall of '98, we were in a rental house, and 25 guys would be, it was small. They'd be out the back deck, they'd be out the front porch. We had neighbors that called the police every week we were out there. Because they couldn't quite understand why these kids of that size and volume and age were hanging out, and we just started teaching from the Word. And so '99 was the first year that I started traveling with them, doing devotions, and Coach Logan was always trying to get around my camera, so he hadn't approved it, but I actually traveled under the guise of being one of his sons. I was either Nate or Vincent on different trips. I actually stayed in his suite in the next room over with one of his boys. And so, yeah, it's just been kind of fun watching all the guys open up.
That's a lot of fun, especially on the travel. Are there any stories that you can remember? I know that Coach Robinson was here, and you guys run together. Can you tell some Harold stories? Or
I love Harold, but yeah, he an old ball coach, you can imagine, doesn't make for the most sterile, the most clean of roommates along the way, who's used to his own way. And so, yeah, there were, like, I get to go to Hawaii on a bowl trip, but I don't get to have my family, and I get to have Harold as my roommate for 8 days. So it was a good thing it was paradise in every other way, but I do love Harold. When you're rooming with someone, you start to become the counselor as well as everything else. So Harold owes me some counseling fees over the years.
Well, we'll get on that. I'll call Coach after the show and see if we can work that out. I know you've had a chance to work with numerous coaches. I know you said Coach Logan, and after that with John Thompson.
John Thompson.
I know he was a good Christian man. What was he like?
I would hear perhaps different things behind closed doors when I wasn't there, but with me, he was incredibly generous financially, and everywhere, he was one of our biggest donors. Nobody wanted him to win more than I did. But was a good guy, loved his family, and they were trying hard. And people have asked, I heard early the comparisons when we weren't doing well with Coach Montgomery, and there is no comparison. He has a staff that knows what they're doing, and we're going to get this turned around. And there was a difference, and it's nothing against John, but he had some kids where guys coaching that our kids were not getting it. Like if something play's not done right, they have to say repeat. Well, on defense, all we did was repeat. I mean, so if they didn't get it during practice, they certainly weren't going to get it come game time. And so there was and they were trying, and they were fighting hard, and honestly, they had come in after things weren't great when Coach Logan left, because there had been, anytime we have a strain between our coaches and the administration, nobody wins.
I wanted to ask you that very thing, because you went from John Thompson for a couple of years, and then you have Coach Skip Holtz, who's now at Louisiana Tech. What'd you think about Coach?
Skip and I hit it off. There was a guy in a similar role that I'm friends with that was at South Carolina, so the baton got passed off to me to kind of continue on. I took great liberties to give Skip grief. Here's one. No coach wants a phone call or a phone to ring when they're out of practice. And his cell phones were kind of new, but I had one during Skip's time because I knew I was waiting a call. And it was the only time I ever took a phone call. And I happened to be talking to Skip when the phone rang. And then he kind of gave me sarcastic grief. Oh, important phone call. And it was actually Jeff Foster asking me if I'd be power of attorney, determining when the vent would be shut off on Coach LeClaire. And I was like, well, Skip, actually, it was a pretty important call. He never asked me again if the phone rang. So it's kind of like, there is important life things that happen outside of football practice. And when they're out there, they begin to think, this is all that really matters, and the reality is there's a whole lot going on around it. Sometimes we gotta slow down and
Could you talk a little bit about Keith LeClaire and his family?
he was just a dear brother that, you know, it was kind of one of those things. He had just had one season in the spring of '98, so I came in soon after he was here. He was one of those guys that the office was always open. You know, you could always stop and he was gonna talk. All his awards were just piled up on the floor. Like, he never hung them up. Well, he had a bass he caught down there where Lynn's family's from. Now, that was hanging above the door, but that was the only thing hanging in his office, because Lynn wouldn't let him put it in the house. But he'd gotten him from back surgery, so we'd gotten close, and then as that kind of hit, well, he did, you know, to the very end, called ALS a blessing in his life, because it changed. He would have said that he knew God and walked with him, but that changed everything to where he understood God's love and grace in a brand new way.
He actually spoke, there's a gentleman here in the audience that he came to the church, one of my really good friends, Brian's here, and he spoke to the men's group there. I'll never forget that. And also, he did the very first interview with us, the station I was working for with Henry Henn at the time, at of all places, Denny's on Memorial Drive. So anyway, we knew right then and there that I told the guys, we were having a meeting about this very podcast the other night. I said, that particular guy, we knew that he did more than win the press conference. When he spoke, then everybody listened, and not only he was great as a coach, but an even better person.
Yeah, no, just a great person. And he had a work ethic, and had Coach Leggett had instilled things, and he wrote some of those devotions that he penned out. He was a freshman from Walpole, New Hampshire, down there at Western, and Coach Leggett said, do something, and he rolled his eyes and said, why would we do that? And an outfielder grabbed him by the chest and said, because Coach said so. And then he coached that way, and Cliff's a disciple of that. You see that in him. So to have a guy who was one of the first groups of baseball guys to come through my house and love Keith the way that he does, be the coach, it's made this kind of, I want him to get to Omaha, but I want to make sure that we do everything to make sure we keep him here after that.
Yeah, I want to give a special shout out to number 23, who has the number of Keith LeClaire, Cliff got him. We're going to get it done. We're going to Omaha. The only problem is it's right at the time of my anniversary with my wife, so she probably will not want to go to Omaha, but maybe we'll see if we can work that out. Well, Chuck.
I'll talk to her a little bit.
I'll definitely get you to pray for me. Chuck, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you guys. These guys are working hard, and we have that chemistry and that family group with these guys. So excited about this upcoming year.
We're going to get it done, and I appreciate it very much for you being here. Let's go to, I know Choo Justice is here. Let's get Choo here then while we have a chance. And we're here live, and we have a very special guest, and my sister Amy's here tonight. She said, how do you know Choo? How do you know him? So I know you're a runner. We'll talk about that. And she's going to kill me for mentioning her name on the podcast, but that's what happens when your brother's doing a podcast. So appreciate you very much for being here, and we want to honor not only the players, the coaches, but the people that are behind the scenes. I told the guys the other night, I said, that's what makes Pirate football. We see the players, the coaches, and there's a lot of us tailgating in the parking lots and all that, but you guys that were behind the scenes doing equipment and managers, you guys are very special to us.
Yeah, back when I came to school, we didn't have a full-time staff, and so the students were responsible for everything. So we played a pretty big role back in those days, and we actually went out, and the coaches would find kids who did it at the high schools and recruit us, and actually gave us scholarships to do it. So we were treated pretty well by Coach.
I know you were, was it Ed Emery that you were, is that the first coach you were with?
Yeah, I came in when Coach Dye had just left, and Coach Emery came in, and so I came in with his first group, and that's when ECU was kind of going through that transition of playing the William & Marys and the Western Carolinas, and speckled our schedule with those teams in Miami, Florida State, and Missouri, and so it was the move up to the big boys.
It definitely was during that particular time. It's we're going after the best. I remember that. I think about 85 or somewhere around there is when I remember that slogan for the marketing East Carolina.
Yeah.
Talk about that particular time when you were here in East Carolina. What were your memories that you were here or behind the scenes? Tell fans that are listening right now on the Sports Objective podcast, or live on Facebook Live. How are things changed from then until now?
I'd say the biggest thing is probably the facilities and just the staffing and the financial end of it, because back in those days, we had a locker room that wasn't much bigger than this. I think our weight room was smaller than this to begin with. And then they moved the weight room into an old skating rink.
That's what I heard. It was like a tobacco warehouse. A lot of the players told me they worked out in a tobacco warehouse, and they actually lifted up the gate of the tobacco warehouse. There was no air conditioning. Forget about that.
Yeah, we had one old warehouse that was the weight room, another one where we did winter conditioning. The laundry facility, we had one washing machine and 2 dryers. It was a far cry from what it is now.
I know Chuck agrees with, he's back in that era, in the early 80s there when Chuck and Northcutt. So Choo, when it comes to the equipment, can you give the Pirate Nation, we have a helmet right here that our Kyle lended here tonight. He got autographed by David Garrard, one of the all-time great and a Hall of Famer. Can you talk about a little bit about that, about the man? Did you guys work on the helmets, or what else? What did you do?
Yeah, so the managers basically were the coach's right-hand people. We did everything from taking care of the equipment, the laundry, giving out uniforms, making sure that everything was functional. So like on a Friday before a game, we would take all the face masks off and replace all the hardware, all the chin straps, that kind of thing, to replace cleats, clean the helmets up, put stickers on, load everything up, fly it to the game, load everything up after the game, and pack it up and bring it back home.
I think Kyle, you do that. Would you do that? Would you do that?
I don't know if I would do the laundry, that might be kind of smelly, but the helmets, getting the helmets to players, getting them ready, putting the stickers on there, that sounds like a lot of fun. What are your memories of the '83 season? You were here during that.
That was my 4th year, our senior year, and as Chuck alluded to, we had gone through a couple losing seasons, and then late in '82, we kind of turned that corner, went from 4-4, won our last 3 games, and started to get on a roll. And kind of similar to the '91 team, we didn't know how good we are. We went down to Florida State, and we're winning until maybe about 2 minutes to go in the game, and a couple breaks went the other way, and we lost 47-46, I think, by 1 point. And suddenly everybody went, wow. And then we came back and we beat NC State, and we just kind of got on a roll from there. So I just remember it was just like a big fun ride. And every week it was more and more fun. And we started getting national attention. Sports Illustrated came in, did a story on us. We were on a national TV game, which was a big deal back then. You know, not everybody got on TV. And so we were living large and flying around the country. I think we played 7 away games and only 4 home games. And to save money so that we had money to go to those games, usually the teams will stay in the hotel for a home game. But that year we actually stayed in the dorm for the games.
Oh, man.
And I remember the coaches would go out recruiting on Friday nights, and Coach Emery would actually come over and stay in the dorm with the team. Well, of course, all the players were at bed check by 10:30. Coach Emery wasn't ready to go to bed, so he would come to our room and hang out and smoke cigars and have a drink, and just generally until he was ready to go to bed. So it was very much a family in some ways, like a band of brothers. I'm not saying that we all hung out and were buddy all the time, but when we went to the locker room or stepped on the field, we were pretty tight.
What was that flight back like from Missouri? That was a huge win for East Carolina.
Oh, it was huge, yeah. Especially because we'd gone there the year before. And what was really fun about it was when we got out there, there were signs. You know, we pulled into the Holiday Inn, I think where we were staying, somebody had put a sign up, you know, where the hell is East Carolina? And the fans were wearing buttons, and that just really got our guys all torqued up in a good way. And so that was, I think, where, you know, we really got on the roll after that.
Good old billboard material, right? Where you can,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
As a coach, I can tell you the inner coach of me right now is just like, oh man, no, they didn't. I didn't know that, but that's. I want to ask you from an equipment standpoint, I'll put you on the spot. Who had the dirtiest uniform? Can you give us
Everybody. And so in those days, the guys had one set of practice gear, and when Chuck alluded to, we practiced 4 times a day during August, and we would have between some practices we wouldn't even watch it. We just, like, if they were in shorts and t-shirts and not hitting and stuff, we would just soak the stuff in the dryer and give it back to them like 2 hours later. I don't know if you've ever had clothes that weren't dried very well and still sweating.
Yeah, he was talking about Chuck.
Yeah, but it was everything we did. Gosh, there were so many guys. I'd say probably Ernest Minor, because he would go out of his way to run over somebody or to hit somebody. And, he was always a mess.
And he's all right. He did very well in
Yeah.
East Carolina, but in the NFL with the Browns and the Redskins. So he had a good career. So if that's what it takes to make it to that level, then give me the dirtiest uniform, right,
Oh, yeah.
Cal?
Absolutely.
We used to joke about the time he was running down the field untouched for a touchdown, and he'd cut back across just so he could run over another defender.
What about, when you're talking about Coach Emery, are there special memories or things, how did he motivate, you guys? Even I would imagine he was such a great motivator, how did he motivate even the managers?
I think Coach Emery, you hear him talk about Coach Ruff and how he loved everybody. Coach Emery was like that. He wasn't a hug you up and love you up per se, but you knew that no matter what, he was there and he could just get you to do, you'd run through a brick wall for him because you knew he had your back. And it was just that sixth sense that we knew he was behind us 100%, no matter what, he was there for us. So we would do whatever we had to for him.
I know you're a tremendous athlete, and my sister would, run from 50 miles or 100 miles. So I want to ask you about running, and I know you're a tremendous. I can tell you're a tremendous athlete. Meeting you for the first time tonight.
Well, I've always been a runner. When I was in college, we didn't have a cross country team, so that's one of the reasons I ended up working with the football team. But after I graduated, I actually continued my running career, and later became the women's track and cross country coach in East Carolina for about 10 years. And today I still been running and racing for over 40 years now.
Do you have any stories on Amy you can tell?
No,
that embarrass her?
no, nothing that, you said, what goes around comes around, so no stories.
Well, I definitely have some stories I can't tell here, I'll tell them here, but that's a whole nother podcast for sure. And well, Choo, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and it means a lot.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. And we have a very special guest. I don't think did she play in East Carolina?
She did not, but her dad is one of the most highly respected defensive coordinators that we've had, that's for sure. And I'm talking about Rick Smith. And he was here under the Skip Holtz regime, of course, and received a lot of credit from Greg Hudson, who was the defensive coordinator at that time. And he was very appreciative of everything that Coach Smith did. And then, of course, he went to South Florida with Skip when Skip left after the 2009 season. And then after the 2012 bowl game, Coach Ruff made the decision to bring Coach Smith back.
Yes, and I want to say, by the way, before we forget, I had a chance to talk to Coach Smith, and we'll have that. All the interviews we had were running behind tonight, but will be uploaded this week and next week. There's so many great players we've had and so many great coaches that we couldn't get to tonight, and there's going to be what we call the after party. And so we're having a nostalgia party tonight, but I want to bring in Beth. Thank you so much. It's an honor to have your dad, and now this particular case we have you on.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I want to talk about your experience at East Carolina, and certainly with your dad, we thank a lot of him. There's a lot of people in Pirate Nation that owe him a lot for what he did for this great university and our 3 different coaches. Talk about your experience being the daughter of a coach. What's that like?
It was quite a ride. Wouldn't trade it for anything. A lot of moving, a lot of such great memories. As a Pirate, we moved around a lot. We're at a lot of different universities, played in a lot of different stadiums. However, I have to say that ECU was special, and for my family was just a magical place, and we enjoyed every minute of it. And still sad that that part of my life is, as a coach's daughter, is over. Of course, we're still Pirate fans, but it was just an amazing experience.
I enjoyed talking to him, and again, you can hear those interviews that we put up in their entirety. In fact, we had about 40 between coaches and players, like 40 players and coaches, and it just speaks the volumes of Pirate Nation, and that we're one big family. I wanted to ask you about your dad, and is there any special stories that when it comes to East Carolina football and players that you could tell? Not anything at practice. I know there's a lot of stories. I've heard some of those stories.
I can tell you a special memory
Okay.
I remember when Dad left to go to South Florida with Skip, and that whole season, and then Skip was let go, which, as you know, as a coach, you're all let go. I prayed somehow, some way that they would get to come back here the whole season. And I don't know how it all fell into place, but when Coach McNeil hired him back, I mean, that was a complete miracle, answer to prayer. And when he did his press conference, and we got to come, Coach McNeil let us come, all my children were there. That was my non-game experience, but that was my most special memory at ECU.
In fact, he talks about that very thing and how he got hired by Coach Holtz. And in the podcast, the interview, he also talks about, your dad does, about that very thing. And it's a very special fact that when he came back in 2013 as defensive coordinator, I know you had to be happy, but also I know that they still had your mom and dad still had their house here, right?
Yes, me and my little brother, not that we're little, but we lived together in their house while they were in Tampa. And when they came back, me and the children moved into our own house, and then Billy, my little brother, moved out of the house. So they wanted their house back, so we gave it to them.
Please,
Growing up as a young Beth Smith, when you would get in trouble, what kind of disciplinarian was Rick Smith? I would imagine Rick would have been tough but fair.
Yes, very tough but fair. And as he got older, he became a lot softer. As a young child, I mean, there were times not scared of him, but I mean, you knew that if you did wrong, you had to deal with the consequences. But he's quite the softy now, especially with the grandchildren.
I know they have a special place in his heart. He had a tremendous time here at East Carolina. I can think about many of the games. In fact, I told him the story about how when I first met him, I was actually coaching at the Eastern Northcutt School for the Deaf, and I'm at the coaches clinic, and I met him for the first time. And there are a lot of coaches who'll say a lot of nice stuff and what you want to hear, but I told him about that. You guys remember that 2004 West Virginia game? I think it was over 400 yards rushing, or Bubba's the stats guy, not me. And he looked at me when I mentioned that to him. He said, "Coach, that'll never happen again." And I knew when he said that he really meant it, not that he was being not just nice to me.
Right. If he says something, he means it. And always speaks the truth.
Well, I tell you, it's an honor to have you, and certainly your dad means a lot too. There's thousands of Pirate fans listening, I know now, and watching on Facebook Live, but I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for sharing your dad with us. We had a lot of great years, and I hope you guys will stay in Greenville for many more years.
Don't plan on leaving. Thank you very much for having me.
And Beth Smith is here, and thank you so much. Appreciate it very much. I believe, Bubba, do we have a caller now?
We do. We should have Terry Gallagher from the Pat Dye era. He should be waiting.
Terry, thank you so much. I know we're running behind. Thank you for being patient with us tonight.
Greg.
Greg, are you there? Oh, Greg, okay, we got you, okay. Greg Grandison's here, and I know that very special time in East Carolina.
Absolutely. When I think the career that Greg Grandison had for the Pirates, the play that comes to mind is that Virginia Tech game that was mentioned earlier. That's what the Hokies had us on the ropes early in the third quarter. We were trailing 14-7, and they were driving to go up 21-7. And Greg Grandison stepped in front of that pass in the left flat and took it to the house. And as they say, the rest is history, because we made it 14-14 on that play, never looked back, and I believe we went on to win that ball game 24-17, if I recall correctly.
And that very thing about the Peach Bowl, we talked a lot tonight, but that's a very special time here at East Carolina, right? And boy, did it ever, I tell you what, Kyle, that was a big year, and certainly, when you think about East Carolina and the Peach Bowl year, that was certainly one that really took the program to a whole different level.
Absolutely. What are your memories of, what game stands out the most to you? Is it the Peach Bowl? Is it the Pittsburgh game? Is it the Syracuse game? What game stands out most to you personally?
That's what's great about rivalries, is that the people with NC State, I know there are a lot of people that, in fact, I've seen some hats and stuff, I hate State or different things, but which is, I want to ask you as a football player for the Pirates, which is a bigger rival to you, NC State or UNC? Right. It certainly does. I know with Coach Montgomery, we talked to him this week, the top 50 recruiting class, and certainly number one or number two, depending on who you talk to in the American Conference when it comes to recruiting. I wanted to ask you, as far as your time at East Carolina, there are certain players or memories that Greg, I appreciate you holding tonight and definitely being with us. We're about out of time, but you're awesome, and definitely thanks for all that you did for Pirate Nation, for the Pirates, a great magical career, certainly with the Peach Bowl, and thank you so much for being on the Pirate Football Nostalgia Party. Thank you, I'm sorry, we're down to a couple minutes. We'll see if we can squeeze in our next guest, right, Bubba? We got about maybe 2 minutes.
Is Terry on hold?
No, he hung up.
Yeah.
All right, we're sorry, Terry is he was actually on hold for a long time, so we apologize to him. We'll definitely talk to him at another time. Right, guys, I'll tell you what, we're down to a couple more minutes, and we'll continue for a little bit longer on Facebook Live. Maybe we talk a little bit. But guys, what a tremendous night. And by the way, I want to thank a few folks. The guy right behind me gave me my first break in radio with Henry Hinton back in July 1st, 1996. Al Cannon has done. Can we give him a big hand for the people here too? I want to thank him. Also, a lot of folks. Brian Freeman did the liners for us before we go. I want to thank him very much, the voice of the Sports Objective podcast. David Horn, that's not here tonight, our technical advisor. He helped out a lot as well behind the scenes with equipment and different things. Also want to thank Linus, Martinez, Steve, all the great staff here. They did a tremendous job tonight, right guys?
Absolutely.
We're getting ready to have some wings. I love their wings here. If you've never been to Professor of Pools, they're in the Big Lot Shopping Center. I wanted to promote them a lot, but we were a little bit behind, so we couldn't do that. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we go? We've got about 2 minutes, about 30 seconds each.
First of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming out. We had an excellent turnout. We appreciate, especially the former players, coaches, and support staff being here. I think one of the recurring themes throughout the night was just the fact that the football team is a real brotherhood, it's family, it's camaraderie, and all those things. And you can have that in other sports, but it's even more true about the game of football. And I think that's one of the things that I really took away from tonight, and how many of our guests spoke about just that.
Just want to thank everybody for coming out here tonight, like all the players, all the coaches, everybody who came out here to have a good time and watch us talk to everybody and remember power of football, and hopefully we'll have more great memories to come, and we'll do this again sometime.
We will. I want to thank all the folks. Our families are here tonight. We've got a lot of great friends, players, coaches. And we're running out of time here, but we want to thank everybody so much for being here. It's been a tremendous night. And I want to thank you, Bubba, coming all over from Salisbury, probably the furthest guest here tonight. Certainly, thank you so much for being a part of this team. And I want to thank Kyle from LaGrange Barber. People actually can see you now. And all the folks on Pirate Radio, I know I've heard you for many years. Thank you so much. By the way, the season's going to be great in 2018. Good luck to Coach Montgomery. And by the way, I want to tell you folks that you can actually listen to all these interviews. We're going to recap all the interviews and all the great, want to thank all the great players that have participated, coaches, staff, and from all of us here live at Professor Pools in Greenville. We wish you a great night and a great season for 28 for Pirate football. Good night, everybody.
Well, you did good.